Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this packed seminar on doing business in Saudi Arabia, achieving success in the kingdom. Because of COVID, obviously we're limited numbers in the room, but this is being recorded and will be broadcast through DSEI Connect through their app, and will also be available online through the AEI website. So if you have questions that you wish to ask, please get them ready, because most of this is going to be a Q&A session for at least 40 minutes, as we find that's the most effective way to engage with people about Saudi Arabia. Generally speaking, I think everyone in the room and most people listening online will be aware of the kingdom from a defense and security marketplace perspective as being one of the largest markets, certainly in terms of export accessibility for Western defense prime contractors, OEMs and SMEs. What we want to get into is a session on providing some very practical, tactical advice and guidance. Before we do that, I'd like to introduce our panel. I'm joined by Lizzie and Susanna, and I'll ask Susanna to introduce herself.
Well, it's lovely. Thank you all for making time for this. I appreciate it. I'm currently the managing director and founder of a very little company called Hawksmoor, which allows myself and my associates and partners to concentrate at the cusp of industry and the authorities within Saudi, and how to make sure that the language spoken by both is understood by the other, and that's a challenge in itself. Before that, I was Middle East defence partner for PricewaterhouseCoopers for 4 years, and before that, I think some of you know me from when I was DG Commercial in the MOD. So really pleased to be here and happy to answer any questions.
And Lizzie.
Good morning, everyone. Those that don't know me, my name is Lizzie Daniell. I've been working with AEI for the last couple of years. I've been in Saudi for 9 years and have been part of and seen so much change, especially with regards to women in business. It's been quite staggering, actually. Before working with AEI, I was a senior advisor at the British Embassy in Riyadh, working for DIT, Defence and Security Exports, where I worked with them for 4 years, and I headed up the department for a year, helping companies like yourselves come and do business, helping facilitate with stakeholders in country.
And I'm Stuart D'Souza, the co-founder and CEO of AEI Saudi. Our company is a consulting practice and support services business. So we help foreign companies to enter the Saudi market, enter, establish and expand, as well as then providing life support services for project delivery all across the kingdom. We are proud rather, to have been the exclusive partner to the UK Department of International Trade since 2017 to support British exporters, and we're also the partner to a number of states in the US, including Virginia, and it's great to see a number of Virginian companies here today. In the last 8 years, we've supported over 1,500 companies to be successful in the kingdom, mainly from the UK and the US. And we always say that we've been flying the flag for Saudi as a place to do business for the last 8 years, and now finally the whole world seems to agree with us, because the volume of interest, not just to AEI and Hawksmoor in terms of inquiries, but the actual evidence on the ground of companies and whole supply chains, particularly in the infrastructure and construction sector, moving to the kingdom is evident. For those of you that are in Riyadh or visiting Riyadh or due to travel soon, you'll see the change as soon as you arrive there. It's really quite an extraordinary place, and I think it's fair to say that there's never been an example anywhere in modern times of a country that is going through a transformation like that which Saudi Arabia is going through. And that transformation is a very clearly defined, at a strategic level anyway, a very clearly defined policy called Vision 2030. I think most of you will be aware of Vision 2030 in broad terms. That's the Saudi government's reform agenda, which is targeting every sector of life, economic, cultural, social, regulatory, looking to transform from the way they've been doing things for the last sort of 40 years into a bright new future that takes them beyond oil. And the two key the two twin pillars, if you like, of Vision 2030 are the diversification of the economy away from oil and the creation of jobs for Saudi nationals. And that second one, jobs for Saudi nationals, there are 25 million Saudi nationals. The scale of that challenge in terms of employment, in terms of healthcare, in terms of giving those young Saudis a future is a key factor in many of the government policies relating to Vision 2030. 70% of that population are under the age of 30. So it's a huge challenge for the Saudis. And Saudization, which is the name given to a formal system of mandatory employment of Saudis based on quotas, it has to be front and center of anyone who's looking at putting a physical and legal presence into the kingdom. That Vision 2030 is being led, if you like, by some of the large infrastructure projects. And I just want to say a couple of things about some of them that you will hear project names like NEOM and the Red Sea Project and Amala and Qiddiya being mentioned all over the place. And it's easy sometimes to be a bit skeptical, a bit cynical as to whether or not these are real projects. Well, they are absolutely real. Ground has been broken on most of these projects. At least 2 new airports have been built, one in the Red Sea and one at NEOM, to sustain and support these projects. The development at Qiddiya outside Riyadh, you can see it for yourself, the progress they're making. The scale of all of these and the ambition is extraordinary. Whether or not they'll all be fulfilled in one go, but that's probably unlikely. We'll see phased developments and phased progress. But there are currently 160 hotels under construction, either in the design or build phase in the kingdom. There's nowhere else on the planet that has that sort of scale. And so the big government projects are leading the way, and there are significant investment opportunities, significant challenges, of course, but it is real and it is happening. Moving to defence, that transformation in terms of diversification away from oil and creating jobs for Saudi nationals, those 2 pillars do feature in defence, but there's a third component to defence transformation, which is about providing the Saudis with more sovereign control, more sovereign capability in the kingdom over their defence and security and aerospace assets, infrastructure, training, contracting. They want to be able to do more in Saudi, spending more of their defence budget in the kingdom. And the defence landscape, for those of you who are exporting to Saudi, is quite complicated. There are many customers. The end user community is quite diverse. We have the Ministry of Defence that covers land, sea, air and air defence. The Ministry of the National Guard, which is currently a totally distinct, operationally independent, primarily land-focused force. We have the Ministry of Interior, which essentially focuses on law enforcement, immigration, prisons, that sort of thing. And then we have the Presidency for State Security, which is the counter-terror and intelligence services. 4 separate ministries and agencies, currently with their own procurement capability. But there's an ambition that the procurement process will be amalgamated across the defence and security sector to enable better value for money when it comes to buying equipment and also providing maintenance, repair and overhaul for that equipment, but also to drive volume for localization. And localization and offset, if you like, with a small o, is a key focus in the defence sector. If you see the Saudi stand that's here at DSEI, you can see on the side of it they've got their target, which is 50% of local content in all contracts by 2030. It's a very, very ambitious target, and they're driving very hard to achieve it. Outside of the end user community, there are 2 other stakeholders that you will need to be aware of. SAMI and Gammy. SAMI, Saudi Arabian Military Industries, effectively seeks to become a national defense champion in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, a prime contractor with employees, with capability, with relationships with prime contractors, providing goods and services to the end user community in the kingdom. A sovereign entity owned by the Public Investment Fund that is under effectively the control of the Saudi government. That entity is still quite nascent. They're now at about 2,500 employees. Most of that headcount has come through acquisition, acquiring a couple of local businesses in the last couple of years. But there's no doubt that the principal beneficiary of local content will be SAMI or an entity that is connected to SAMI in some way. The other half of that relationship is an entity called Gammy, the General Authority of Military Industries. And whereas SAMI is a doer, a prime contractor, or will be a prime contractor, Gammy is a regulator, is a regulatory authority, setting rules and regulations around local content, multipliers, compliance, that sort of thing, but also has an ambition to drive synergy across defense and security sector procurement to achieve volume, to drive localization. So there are many examples of where the end user community have acquired the same piece of equipment through different routes. It's supported separately, training is done separately, spares and repairs, procurement loops are all managed separately. Gammy will look at trying to harmonize and bring that synergy across platform procurement and maintenance, repair and overhaul and training to drive volume for local content and to get better value for money. So those of you that are bidding into the defense sector, Gammy will become a key stakeholder for you in terms of that procurement process going forward. And finally, I just want to talk a little bit about the defense budgets. They remain very healthy in the kingdom, but a lot of the defense budget is spent obviously on people. Across the defense and security sector, the headcount is nearly 500,000 people are employed across the MOD, National Guard, MOI, and Presidency for State Security. The procurement budgets across those four sectors run at around $15 billion a year. So it's still a very healthy procurement budget to go after. There's a transformation going on in procurement right now. So we've not seen a huge number of big projects, if you like, being awarded in the last couple of years, whilst they're waiting for that transformation to take effect, to making sure procurement processes are effective so they can drive volume for local content and assure better value for money, and to also drive out any vested interests that there may be in the supply chain. That process is well underway, and we're now starting to see a few programs move in wheeled armored vehicles, in some of the big training programs, and of course a lot of the budget in defense is tied up in government-to-government programs, whether that's US foreign military sales or UK government-to-government. And we expect that to continue to be a feature of the defense procurement process going forward, but perhaps prioritized more on platform procurement rather than maintenance, repair and overhaul activities that it currently covers. So I hope that's enough of a little sort of a scene setter for you, introduction to what's going on in the kingdom. I know most of you will either have been to Saudi very recently or will know a little bit about the kingdom. Those of you that are planning on visiting, one date for your diary is the World Defense Show, which is taking place in March next year. We have a trade mission coming from Virginia to support that. There'll be a number of trade missions coming from the UK as well. It'll be a great time to come and you'll see the great and the good of the defense, security and aerospace community in terms of end users, in terms of government agencies, and of course local suppliers will be on display, and it'll be a great opportunity to visit and validate your thinking about the kingdom.